Hi, welcome to PT Resources. This is JJ Armstrong. Today I'm going to talk you through the client metabolic profile form. Now, this form is actually a very powerful form. So what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the first part, the metabolic details, which is the basic calculations where we're going to look at ideal weight, the daily metabolic rate, and how much they need to lose, and give them some idea of their target. Okay, the advanced metabolics, I'll take you through this, but you would only use this if you are familiar with this content, and if not, I'll tell you where you can get more information, and then we would then send the report. So let's go back here to the details. So we'll start off. Now you've got a client and they need to lose weight. So you're going to take them through a couple of tests to find out the information that you need to plug into this form, and then this form will do the rest for you. Okay, so I've put some information in about a client here. We've got the name and the date. You can then click here and choose the date and it will drop it in there for you. So in this case there. And this will be blank when you first come on this form, and what we're looking at is the ideal weight. So we're going to fill in this little bit of information here to get an idea of their predicted ideal weight. First thing you're going to do is put in their current weight. Now you can put it in pounds or kilos, no problem here. I've put it in pounds. Don't forget the metabolics is always done in kilograms in the metric system. So you will find certain things on this form that will switch to the metrics, but you can still put in your imperial measurements here. Okay, so her current weight is 190 pounds, and her body fat percentage, we need to take that, and we can, if we don't have the body fat percentage and you are a member of PT Resources or fitnessforms.net, then you can click on here, and I'll just show you what this form looks like. Let's see, let's go over. So if you clicked on that link, you'd come here and you'd get the information that you need to put in. So in this particular case, you would need a couple of measurements. So get a tape measure out and grab these measurements. We'll be able to predict their body fat percentage. You can do it in centimetres as well if you're using the metric system. So just switch it over here, and then of course you'll submit it to yourself. Right, so let me go back now to the client metabolics, and that's what you would get, by the way, that body fat form you get by clicking here, again, if you're in the membership site. So by putting in this piece of information here, we're able to predict that Jane's ideal weight is 138 pounds. If I was to switch this to kilos, it will switch it over to kilos. Obviously I need to put in the right measurement here, but the kilos will come up instead. So let's go back to pounds. Okay, her body fat percentage we put in. Now that means that we can calculate the lean body mass, and her lean body mass is 48.36 kilograms. Don't forget that the metric system is used in metabolic calculations. Okay. Oh, by the way, just if you need to know how to turn this into pounds, you can simply times it by 2.2, and that'll give you her lean body mass in pounds. Let's move to the next section now. That's the daily metabolic rate. And what we're looking at here is the total predicted energy output that she's going to use per day. Now, if I was to take this activity level out for a moment, I'm able to see what her basal metabolic rate calculation is. That's how much she would use if she was to, let's say, lie in bed all day. So I'm going to, for this, add the age and the height. Now again, the height can be put in either inches or centimetres. If you are using inches, then, let's say in this particular case, we've got 65 inches, which is 5'5". Just take the feet and times them by 12, and then add the inches to get the total inches here. Obviously centimeters, if you're using centimeters, then you would put in, ignore this a minute, you would put in the centimeters. So 165 centimeters is 1.65 meters, obviously. So just take out the point if you're in meters and add the centimeters here. Let me just go back now to the inches, and let's go back to 65. Now when I click off, obviously things will calculate. So we're looking here at her basal metabolic rate at this point, because I haven't changed anything here to add the activity level. Sorry, just this is where you pick your male, female. We're looking at the basal metabolic rate, and the BMI here is 32, so she's got to drop some weight, as we already know. Now obviously when we use BMI, we do have to take into consideration its limitations in certain body types. Okay, the activity level, we've got a few things to choose from. Now, very sedentary would be basically sitting down all day, doing very little at all. Sedentary is a little bit more active, and then we go down the line here. So this is a little bit subjective, but for most people, you'd probably drop into this sedentary category here. Now, very active would be usually reserved for people who are exercising vigorously and often, and they also lead an active job. That's that they're on their feet all day. And then if you think of somebody like a builder who might be very much hands-on, then you get the idea of what we might mean by very active, and that will throw this up. If I just do this now, you can see that the daily metabolic rate, the amount that we would expect them to be burning per day, jumps right up here to 2,844. So I'm going to go for the sedentary, and so this particular woman's daily metabolic rate, that's the energy that she uses per day without doing any additional exercise. This is simply her activity and her basal metabolic added together. Good. So I'm going to go down now, and we're going to see how much weight that she needs to lose. And this is already calculated based on the information that we dropped in up here, this part here. So we'll look here. She's got 52 pounds to lose. You can see that. It's obvious from this, 190, and then the ideal weight of 138. But we've done this for you, calculated this, and we've dropped in these statistics here so that you can have a quick glance of what you've done so far. So let's move on to the last part of this particular form, the energy equations to reach a target. And this is where you're going to plug in some variables, and what this represents is the amount of intake that you're going to prescribe or suggest, and the amount of exercise. So it's energy in here and energy output here. Now don't forget, we've already allowed for her general activity here. So what we're looking at in this part is simply the added exercise that she hasn't been doing up to now. So what are we going to add on to her overall activity? I've put in 1200 here for the intake. That's obviously the minimum for the ACSM recommended energy intake. So this is the lowest that the ACSM would suggest you go. So let's put that in, and now let's get to the exercise calories themselves. And the way that you're going to do that is you're going to look at the exercise prescription, and then you'll divide it by 7 to get your weekly number that you put in here. The example I'm using here is she's going to be doing 300 calories per workout, and she's going to be working out 5 times a week. So I took 1,500, and that's the total exercise per week, and I divided it by 7 days to get 215 calories. Now the thing you've got to watch for here is that whatever you prescribe here in terms of the exercise calories, make sure that they are actually fit enough to be able to do that. So, you've got to look at the whole metabolic profile to decide on what is possible here. The other thing to look at is the pounds lost weekly. Make sure that this doesn't go over 2.0. If it does, then you've probably got these numbers wrong, and it's going to be not a realistic target for the person to hit over 2 pounds per week. So for example, if I was to change this to 1,000, and I hit the tab, you'll see that this now went over the 2 pounds per week. So not realistic here. You're expecting her to do 300 calorie workout 5 times a week. You're only putting her on 1,000 calories, and this is going to throw this off. So make sure that this number is under 2.0. That's just a suggestion that I am giving you to keep this prediction realistic, because obviously the worst thing you can do is tell a client that they're going to hit their goal in, let's say, 4 or 6 weeks, when really there's no way they're going to do that without stitching up their mouth, not eating any food, and trying to slog them around in terms of their energy output. It's just not going to work. So she's got a target here. Just make sure this is right. I'm going to click in here and then hit the tab. It will run me to the top, and that just makes sure that you filled out the form. There's 1.8 pounds per week. So, yep, realistic, a little bit tough here, but nevertheless, this is possible. 1 to 2 pounds a week maximum is what I would suggest you go for. So again, once you've done this last one and you hit the tab, you'll be popped up to the top, scroll back down again, and then we're going to see this change. How long will it take her to reach her target? Well, this is the maximum that we would expect. She's got a lot to lose, but if she gets on a plan and she sticks on an average here and she keeps this up, and obviously as she does this training, she's going to get fitter, and therefore we would expect this number to increase. And what that does is that brings this down. And that's one of the reasons why I say that this is the maximum. We're going to leave this where it is. We're going to say to the client that the maximum this is going to take you is 28 weeks. But if you do this properly, then you don't have to worry about losing weight again. And that's what it's all about. I'm going to go back up now, and I'm going to take a look at the advanced metabolics. Now again, if you're not familiar with these terms that I'm going to use, then do check out our main site, which is metabolictrainingexpert.com. And if you go over there, you can see our training programs for lots of stuff, including these type of metabolics. Going to look at the training heart rate first, and what you want to do here is put in the desired exercise intensity in a percentage of the VO2 max, and that's important. This is not percentage of heart rate, this is percentage of VO2 max, so much more accurate here. 60%, as you are probably familiar with, is the cutoff between moderate and vigorous exercise, so 60% here, and that represents a training heart rate of 135. Now I just want to say that if I just take that out a minute, don't forget to put the resting heart rate in, so measure that, resting, otherwise you're going to get this without the heart rate reserve part calculated. So I'm going to put in the resting heart rate, say 70, and now we've got the training heart rate based on the heart rate reserve as a percentage of VO2 max. If you know their maximum heart rate, then you can pop that in here, and what that will do is that will alter this heart rate reserve for you, so you can then do calculations right off of the heart rate reserve. So if I put in max heart rate, let's say her maximum heart rate was 190, then you can see that that has adjusted now to a heart rate reserve of 120. So if you want to play around with the heart rate reserve, then stick in the max heart rate if known, and if not, then leave that blank, and this will give you the training heart rate at whatever percentage you put in here. So if I put 40%, and there you go. So 40%, which is the bottom of the moderate scale. I wouldn't bother doing anything less than 40%. and so that's 114. So you're able to get some zones going based on just plugging this number in and changing it. Or if you want to, as I say, work from the heart rate reserve, then stick this in here. This is giving you the heart rate reserve already based on this information, and has predicted the maximum heart rate for you to come up with this 109. Let's move on now. I'll just change this back to 60. Stick her up on the top of the moderate, between that line between moderate and vigorous. So, coming down, how many calories will she burn at different heart rates? So this is really another way of playing around with this bit here, but it gives us a little bit more information, and this is really where it starts to get interesting, because what we do here is we put in her current VO2 max, and then we are able to come down here and plug in some various percentages of exercise intensity. Again, this is based on percentages of VO2 max. So I've put in here the minimum, the 40, put in the top of the moderate intensity, and then I've put in the top of the vigorous intensity. So we've got some heart rates here to play with, and we've also got the predicted calories per minute, so we can look at this, times it up, and get an idea of the energy expenditure. And of course we've got the METs, again really valuable for looking at fitness in relation to different sports and activities, and general metabolic metrics. Coming down, the exercise intensities. Now this here is simply whatever you put in here. This has been dropped down for you, and what we're looking at here is the total calories per exercise minute that they spend at this particular intensity. So you can play around with these depending on what you're prescribing. For example, if we had an exercise in an average of 60% of her VO2 max, and we had her doing that for, let's say, 20 minutes, then the total calories at 20 minutes at 60% for her is 94. And that is the same as 15 minutes at 80%. Now, assuming that she can exercise at this level, but of course we know with a max VO2 of 25, then that's simply not going to be possible. All right, coming down, we've got some watts here. So if you're using bike, then you can play around with this, making sure that these METs do not run over these here, because at this intensity, you can see here, if we look at 120 watts, which is 6 METs, and we can also see that 6 METs is 80% of her VO2 max, then we then know what's possible or not possible here. So I always look at these numbers here and compare it with what's going on up here. So again, if you were a bit lost in some of this information, then head over to metabolictrainingexpert.com and check out the courses that we offer there, and we'll get you up to speed very quickly on this type of information, and of course a lot more beyond. Finally, whether you filled out just this part and left out the advanced metabolics, because that is optional, you can now either way go over to this report and get it sent. If you don't send it, then obviously you're not going to have a copy. Now, the main thing you need to do with these reports is make sure that you fill out the email address, because that's where, when we hit the submit, that's where it's going to go. Usually this is your email address, and then you get a nice PDF of everything you've done here, and you can then obviously send that on to the client, put it in a client's file, and so on. So make sure you at least put in this email address, and I would suggest that you put it into your own email address, and then you can forward it on. The other information is optional. These bits here, your name, company, contact number, and website. You've already got the client's name in here, so you don't need to worry about that. And then when you've done everything there, you hit submit, and off it goes to your email address, and you'll get a PDF there, and also a general copy of this form. If you then want to use the form for someone else, then you can reset it. So if I go back here and hit reset, everything clears out and I'm off to start again with a different client. So that's the client metabolic profile, and we host these forms at fitnessforms.net, or you can go along to our main membership site, which is ptresources.com, and you'll find everything you need there. My name is JJ Armstrong, and thanks for listening.